Good morning and welcome to Live with Joan and our special series, How to Help Animals. And we have an amazing guest today. We're going to give it a few minutes so that people can come on. It's a beautiful day here in sunny Southern California. What is it like there, Claudia, in Florida?
It's beautiful, actually. It's not too hot and it's kind of breezy, so it's good. It kind of feels like California a little bit, which makes me miss home more.
Yeah, I bet. All right, so
we've got people coming on.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right, well, we'll get the show rolling. So if you're new to me, my name is Joan Ranquet. I'm an animal communicator, author, TEDx speaker, and founder of Communication with All Life University. And the school is for people to learn animal communication or become an animal communicator, to learn energy healing or become an energy healer. And now we're opening the nature and wildlife part of the school, which is very exciting. I've been working with all the teachers that are going to be teaching that part of the school. And I also have some almost exciting news that I can't announce quite yet, but I'll just go ahead and say there may be a book deal again. So, and it may or may not have something to do with EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. So it's very exciting. And we have lots of fun classes coming up. We have the spring intensive, and I don't think we have any live spots left, but we do have virtual spots. So that's 3 days of animal communication, 3 days of EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, and 3 days of animal communication in sanctuaries, which of course is so important these days because so many animals are ending up in sanctuaries. And then we also have on April 27th, we have the animal communication level 1. So if you can't make the 9 days where it's completely immersive, then maybe you'd want to do a 12-week course where you get to kind of slow and steady wins the race. You get a ton of content within the online part of the school, and then there's 12 live calls. And then on May 12th, we start the Energy Healing for Animals level 1, which again, a ton of online material, and then it's like 8 weeks of tapping and a couple weeks of scalar wave. It's really it's a very powerful class. And I will tell you, and I've said this before, but this is really starting to become the wind down. If there is a book, it's coming out next spring, which means I'm in hyperspeed with writing and getting it into production for the publisher. And so this is kind of the last year that I'll be teaching as much as I am. So I really encourage you, if you're interested in joining any of the classes, the time is now, because I've got the most amazing teachers. You won't lack for excellent teaching and curriculum, but it will be fun to meet you. So anyway, who's here this morning?
Okay, so it's my pleasure, honestly, to introduce Shannon Keith. Shannon is an activist attorney, professor, multi-award-winning filmmaker, and the founder and president of the nonprofit organization Beagle Freedom Project, BFP. Shannon formed BFP in 2010, a nonprofit rescue and advocacy organization, in order to rescue animals from testing, advocate for an end to testing, and ultimately legislate for it. As an attorney, Shannon has challenged the archaic law that animals are considered property. She brings her activism to the courtroom, making sure to change the language and culture of how we view and treat animals by using language encouraging companionship rather than ownership, and thereby advancing the concept that animals are sentient beings deserving of legal recognition beyond that of an inanimate object. I'm sorry, I'm getting chills. Her cases resulted in several lower court opinions awarding damages for the emotional distress of animals, thereby recognizing they were deserving of legal recognition. Shannon also served as the advisor to Judge Wapner on the television series Animal Court, advising him on how to decide his cases. Awesome. Shannon has also taught several animal law courses in law schools across the country and has been a frequent guest speaker on animal law in over a dozen schools, including UCLA and USC. As a filmmaker, she focuses on stopping the problem at its roots through educational documentaries and has won several awards for her groundbreaking films exposing animal cruelty. Her first documentary, Behind the Mask, explores the underground world of those activists who break the law to save animals. Skin Trade, her second documentary, exposes the cruelty, fraud, and deception in the fur industry. And her third documentary, Sanctuary, which was just released, delves into the world of primates exploited for the exotic pet trade, entertainment and testing, and ultimately ending in sanctuaries. Her first two films garnered several awards, including Best Documentary Feature at festivals nationally and internationally. Since 2010, Beagle Freedom Project has rescued over 3,000 animals from laboratories where they were experimented on for cosmetics, products, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, and 6 scientific curiosities. These animals would have been otherwise killed after the experiments ended, but BFP, with its inventive campaign, secures the release of these animals, finds them loving homes. Sorry. I got to be a part of that, so I get very emotional. And educates the public about the fraudulent practices of animal testing via these incredible ambassadors. BFP has also focuses on changing laws. Since 2014, BFP has passed its signature legislation, the Beagle Freedom Bill, in 11 states, making it mandatory to release dogs and cats after testing instead of killing them. This is the first step of many towards ending testing and is the only law that recognizes the value of animals beyond being used as subjects. Shannon lives in Los Angeles, California with her 3 dogs, Gracie May, a pit bull, Maya, a Great Dane, and Cha-Cha, a Chihuahua, all rescued from shelters. A rescued cat, Faith, a rescued turtle, and rescued tortoise. I love Cha-Cha. And I'm bringing her on right now.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks, Claudia. You're making me cry now.
I need to start crying. I was like, where's my Kleenex? It's over there. Yeah, I mean, what you've done is amazing. And so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, and thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you. So how did you ever get started into this, what would have to be at times a pretty dark world, but you obviously bring a ton of light to it. What brought you to it?
I would just have to say that I feel that that's why I'm here. You know, I've been asked that question so many times, and of course I ask myself that question all the time. Why do I do this? And it's just one of those things where I feel like that's really why I was born. There's no other explanation that, you know, when things get really, really dark and heavy and I feel that I just can't see or take anymore, I just wake up the next morning and fight even harder. So I know that that's really my purpose in life. I have really no other purpose other than to do this and be a voice for those animals.
That's so amazing. I've heard, and it's a really horrible thought, that one of the reasons that beagles are used in testing is because they're so kind and even-tempered and willing. Is that true?
Yes, and actually that comes from our very first rescue. If you go to our YouTube channel and watch our very first rescue, which was December 23rd, 2010, that's how we started Beagle Freedom Project. I just happened to grab my little video camera, had no idea this was going to turn into such a huge, amazing mission. The woman who worked at the laboratory who was able to get these beagles out for us, I was speaking with her, and this is all in subtitles, you know, because she didn't want her face on camera. It was hard to hear her, but she just was talking the whole time, and she said, you know, I guess that's why they use them, you know. And I mean, she knew she knew why, and she said it's because they're so forgiving. It's because they're so docile and so forgiving. And she said they won't fight back. They won't fight back. And this is the exact reason. It's the reason people love beagles. They're so sweet. And also they're the perfect size for cages, unfortunately.
I didn't know I was going to start out crying right off the bat.
Yeah.
Got Claudia on and between the two of us, we're going to be crying for about an hour. But,
yeah.
It's just so horrific.
It's a secret industry that nobody knows.
And so tell me more about it being secret. Like what do they do in there? How do they use them? I mean, I know, but I want people to hear.
Yeah. I say nobody knows. I mean, obviously some people know, but
Yeah.
it's the animal testing industry is huge, obviously. It's $1 billion industry. By the way, I love you've got the cat cup and I've got the Save Pups Rub Bellies cup. That's awesome.
Hmm,
Yeah, so
hmm.
they have billions of dollars, so they have so much money and they have so many ways to hide, and that's exactly what they intend to do. And especially when it comes to dogs and cats, the very animals with whom we connect the most, right? Those are the animals with whom we share our lives the most. They share our beds, they're our family members. And so they don't want people to know that they test on those animals, and they do an excellent job at hiding that from the public. And so um, when you see posters and you see advertising, it's usually always about rats, mice, sometimes rabbits, right? Because they feel like, well, the public doesn't really care about rats and mice as much as obviously care about cats and dogs. I'm not saying I don't care about them, because I do, but in general, right?
Right.
um, so you walk outside, you ask somebody in the street, you ask someone in the mall, hey, did you know that, animals are being tested on? Do you know dogs and cats? No, they don't test on dogs and cats. They stopped that a long time ago. I mean, maybe they test on rats and mice. People don't know. Um, so this particular lab, when we did that first rescue, we got a lot of dogs out of that laboratory the first several years, and we got a lot of media. And we never said the name of the laboratory at all. That's my dog, sorry.
Hmm.
And we were then told that the laboratory was going to stop releasing the dogs to us because there was media attention, which was, of course, our purpose. We want the world to know, hey, dogs are being tested on. Stop purchasing products that that come from testing on animals. Although we did not disclose the name of the laboratory because we didn't want the lab to stop releasing the dogs, we did say the location. We were in the San Francisco Chronicle, so it was in Northern California. I said, well, what do you mean the lab is going to stop releasing animals? We didn't say the name of the laboratory. And this person said to us, it doesn't matter. The laboratory said they don't want the public knowing that the biomed industry tests on dogs. Period. So they lied, and she said to me, they're going to stop the release program, period. And that threw me into a huge depression. I thought, oh my gosh, did I just kill all these dogs? So now they're not going to release anymore? That means they're just all going to be killed after the testing. And there's this delicate balance, right? It's like, we want to get them out of there, but at the same time, like, we don't want to keep perpetuating, right? We want the world to know, and we want to end it. So what do we do? So fast forward a couple of years, I get an email from somebody who's on our e-list somehow, our e-blast list. And she says to me, hey, do you think you guys can help us? I run a very small rescue group in Northern California, and we've been getting these dogs from this laboratory in Northern California for years, and we just need help. Turns out it's from the same laboratory. They never stopped releasing. They were just going to her because she doesn't say a word about it. So, they lied to us. I mean, thank God.
Yeah.
But this is something that they do. I mean, the lies on top of lies on top of lies. So they just don't want anyone to know. Dogs are being tested on, period.
It's so horrific. But I also want to talk a little. There's my dog giving her 2 cents. That
Go get them.
Go get him, exactly. That's Delilah would be right with you. So I want to talk then about chimpanzees and rats and mice and rabbits, and talk a little bit about sentient beings and why we don't view rats and mice in the same category, and they don't have legal status in the same way. So
Right.
maybe we could talk about that before we jump into chimps.
Sure. Yeah, it's incredibly sad. So only certain animals are given any kind of legal recognition under the Animal Welfare Act. Um, so certain animals like fish, rats, mice, rabbits, farm animals are given no legal recognition under the Animal Welfare Act. So, for example, when you're looking up when you're looking up a laboratory and you want to know what kind of animals they use and test on, they don't necessarily need to count the animals besides the cats and dogs and the non-human primates, because it doesn't matter, because they're not given any kind of legal status. So they can torture these animals as much as they want, because they're not even counted. And they're not awarded any type of legal status. That's how disgusting our laws are here in the United States and elsewhere as well, which we can talk about too. But they don't get any type of legal protection.
That is so, I mean, it just takes my breath away when I think about that. And I think about it, it means that on top of the animals being slaughtered, on top of the animals that are used in the dairy industry, the level of suffering and torture that's in this country alone is like pretty off the charts.
It is. And the more you read and research about it, it's just the worse it gets. We are progressing, but at the same time, it's kind of like we're still stuck in the dark ages, even though we're progressing. So it's like the more you learn, the more archaic it is.
I always say that religion and science aren't going to acknowledge animal communication, because between religious and some other cultural sacrifices and what science does, to acknowledge animal communication would mean game over for a lot of the practices that they do. I mean, if somebody had to admit to themselves the suffering, how do you think people work in a place and don't see mice suffering?
That's a great question, because I've had to obviously play nice with a lot of these people in the past, talk to them and pretend I'm their friend. I've also gone undercover in a lot of these places. And the cognitive dissonance is amazing. So you walk into these facilities and the brainwashing is crazy. So there are posters everywhere from different pharmaceutical companies. And I mean, they're intentionally placed there where it's like your baby or a mouse. They're there to intentionally brainwash the employees. Every pen, every pad of paper is from a pharmaceutical company. There's not one object there that isn't from a company. And everything there is about saving lives, an animal or your life. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody say, well, we wish we didn't have to do this, but it's a necessary evil. Because they truly think that it's necessary. And they all, quote unquote, love the animals there. Please tell us how coffee is doing. So they don't have names, they only have numbers. So they have they're identified by the numbers that are tattooed in their ears. What sometimes they will do is give them names when they're being released to make it look like they've been given a name, like they're not some kind of object. And it's really funny, not funny, but to me it's funny now, how they're given an immediate name. So a lot of times it's like what they could think of at the last minute. So we get a lot of coffee and bagel, donut. I mean, yeah, right. Eraser, anything they could think of at the last minute. Yeah. So, and they just want to know, like, please keep in touch. we want to know how they're doing. Of course, I never hear from them again. They have my email.
Yeah.
But they pretend that they love them. And I think that they truly think they do when they're telling me this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's the whole dissonance, right? I mean, it is, oh, I love you this much, and you're helping us. Okay, thank you, Delilah. It's gross, I know.
Yeah. Delilah's like, I have a name, and it's real.
Yeah. Delilah's letting the world know. Delilah's on the patio right now, so... anyway, so why are chimpanzees used so much? Because they share so much DNA with us?
Yeah. So that's the irony, right? Is like, so chimpanzees are almost exactly like us. And so that's why they're used. So thanks, Mai. And so, okay, so that's why chimpanzees are used. Well, then why are dogs used? Why are goats used? Why are alpacas used? Why are cats used? Well, if you're going to use an animal or, a primate that's exactly like us, then why are we using all these other animals? Not that it's okay to use chimpanzees, don't get me wrong, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
No.
Yeah, the irony is real. So yeah, I mean, obviously, luckily, like, chimpanzees are not supposedly being used anymore, but now they're just being enslaved in different facilities. So that's a whole other story that I won't get into right now. But non-human primates are being used like crazy still. And that's horrific. So it's like almost like chimpanzees aren't being used anymore, or very little. That's being phased out, but it kind of upped the population of non-human primates being used.
It's so awful. And are these like regular drug companies, or are they makeup? What is it primarily that uses all of these?
It's a combination. So pharmaceuticals are so for dogs and cats and primates, it's primarily pharmaceuticals, and also really horrific psychological traumatizing tests. Those are really the worst, I think. Like when I say gross scientific curiosities, that's what I mean. Like just disgusting stuff. However, sometimes sometimes cosmetics are used as well. They like to also use cosmetics on pigs and rabbits. But there were some dogs that I know that were used for cosmetics for mascara. So that is sometimes done as well. It's just more rare that dogs are used for cosmetics, but it does happen. There's just such a combination. There's just no shortage. I mean, we've rescued so many farm animals that have been used for antibody testing, lots of pharmaceuticals on farm animals, which is strange,
Yeah.
It's just like they're nothing like us. Their systems are completely different.
But whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. The myriad of animals we've rescued is insane. So yeah, I mean, with dogs, it's like they blinded them in a study for Latisse mascara.
I can't. I don't get it.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why we developed an app. We developed an app called Cruelty Cutter.
I love your app. I have to tell you, I've gone. Are you putting it in the chat?
I literally right before Shannon mentioned it, I posted the link to the app.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And unfortunately, there are things that I thought were non-cruelty, but they're owned by bigger companies that are not cruelty.
Yeah. And we try to make it a point. So in our app, For those of you who don't know, it's a free app you can download, and it makes it really easy to shop cruelty-free because you just scan the barcode on a product, and it will instantly tell you if it's cruelty-free or not, meaning it tests on animals or it doesn't. And then you can share those results on your social media platforms, which is great because then you can educate all your friends and anyone who sees, your share. We're pretty strict. So, and we have we do a lot of research. We have people on our team who are constantly updating it because there's always updates of the cruelty-free status of things because everybody's always changing and companies are always changing. And so there's a lot of like parent companies who do testing, and then the sub company might not test, but it's a very gray area. So we make sure that the sub company that says they don't test for sure doesn't test. So a lot of times a company will say we don't test, and then the fine print says only when required by law. So you got to make sure of that, and we make sure of that. So our stuff is very well researched and pretty gnarly. So we make sure of everything.
I love that so much. And I also, so I've been watching the whole cruelty-free thing for a long time. That's why I thought this one product for sure was fine. But so it's not enough to just look and see if there's a little cruelty-free bunny on the back of something. They could still be owned by somebody that is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, it's so gray. So basically they could have the bunny, but that's very misleading. So the bunny these companies pay, it depends, like they have to pay to be on some cruelty-free list, which, we don't agree with either. Like nobody has to pay to be on Cruelty Cutter. It's whatever. Like our app is expensive for us. We pay people to, keep our database up to date. Like this is something we do because we want people to go cruelty-free. So the bunny, I don't know if that even means anything, really. We want to make sure that people who purchase that product, the parent company isn't profiting off of that. We want to make sure that they have a separate contract that they had with the parent company, that it's its own individual entity. If that's the case, fine. Then they're cruelty-free.
I really recommend everybody getting that app this minute because it's brutal. I mean, it is brutal.
They're very.
Yeah. And then it's like, voting with your dollars, really paying for the companies that are going out of their way, which isn't going out of their way to be cruelty free, because why would you be cruel? But you know what I mean? Like, but the companies that are definitely being great about never doing that should be honored and purchased from and validated and the whole thing. So I love the app.
And please click the boycott button when there's when you find a company that does test, because our plan is to take that data to those companies that test, to their shareholders meetings, and present that data so that they will hopefully make a difference. So we have a whole slew of data. We're waiting for a little bit more and say, hey, just from users of the app, you have lost this much money. It's time to stop and get with the times.
Yeah. It just blows my mind. It's like you walk into like a CVS or something like that, and all the companies that have their big display on the wall, like Almay and, Neutrogena, all of that. I mean, they're all companies that do animal testing. Every one of them that owns the wall at a big store. Or walking Nordstrom and you see like Estee Lauder and every single thing that's on that ground floor. I mean, to me, like department stores are just like between the leather shoe purses on the ground floor.
Yep.
Sit on it. Like,
I know.
I can't walk in here.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. It reminded me of this like kind of kind of funny, not funny, like short documentary I want to make about like through the eyes of a vegan, like what we see, like right in our life, like just everywhere, like sniffing shoes, like in a store to see like is that real leather or not, like just like what other people see when they look at us, like why is that person sniffing shoes?
Why are they crawling around on the floor smelling all the things? It's true. Well, if you need help on that one, I'm happy to help. I even think about like walking into a grocery store. It's like everywhere around except for like the wine and the produce. Everything else is pretty much death. But
Yeah, avoiding aisles, just like I'll avoid that aisle, thanks.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, yeah. It's the world through the eyes of a vegan. It's sometimes you just have to shut it down a little to function, but it's always tracking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the world we live in, and it's sad, it really is. But I was actually amazed when CoverGirl went cruelty free. That was huge. That was really, really huge.
That is big.
Hopefully more huge companies like that will see the light.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little about some of the legislation you've done, but the other day I read an article in the New Yorker where they were saying that personhood is somebody that can look to the future a bit and see the past, and therefore are animals that can like look to, have experienced trauma in the past so they remember, and they can look to the future in terms of like I can get over there. They fall under the category of personhood.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to become time.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? Maya was barking.
That's right. Do we think that the animals being considered persons because they can acknowledge the past and the future, do you think that will become bigger through time?
I certainly hope so. That's really the only way for society to have any type of respect for animals, and that was my ultimate goal in becoming an attorney. I mean, that is why I became an attorney, period, to become an animal rights attorney and give them personhood or sentience. I didn't look at it in terms of the definition you just described. I looked at it in terms of just sentience. So if they can feel pain, if they suffer, the Jeremy Bentham quote, basically, then they deserve, to be recognized in the law, period. It doesn't matter to me whether or not they can reason. It's whether or not they can feel pain,
Right.
period. So obviously we know they do. I mean, anyone who knows an animal knows they do, period. And if they can feel pain, they deserve legal recognition. And so, as Claudia described in the opening and in my bio, I did receive a lot of those. It was very difficult. Those lower court opinions granting sentience to animals. And that was a challenge because judges are very loath to do that, to open the floodgates. I had to analogize to cases from like the 1800s and get really, really creative. Animal law is still a very new concept. Luckily, we've come a long way since I started practicing, which was like, 19. I started in 1998. And that was like a new thing that, I started basically. But they have to be, or else nothing's going to change. And, things are still going to be things are still going to be bad for them. But if we, if we have something written in statute, that they have sentience in the law, and, there's actual repercussions and we can have civil lawsuits, then there's going to be changes. You know, right now, sure, we have like felonies, misdemeanors, and things like that. That's still not stopping people. But civil lawsuits, that's going to stop people because people care about money.
Yeah. So do you practice privately, or are you more just working with your nonprofit?
I had my own practice for many years until I started my nonprofit, and then I slowly phased out. I'm still an active attorney, like active in the state bar. So I use that with Beagle Freedom Project. And then, of course, if anyone ever needs me, I'm here, you know, on an emergency basis. So.
And then, so what are some of the other legislation that that you've done or will do?
So, you know, obviously, like the key to what we're doing is, our mission is to ultimately end animal testing. And we all know that can't happen overnight. So we started with our signature legislation in 2014, the Beagle Freedom Bill, and that really caught on. And one would think that that's just so easy, such a vanilla, I thought it was so vanilla, such a vanilla piece of legislation. So in essence, what it says is when the testing is over, it mandated facilities to release dogs and cats to a nonprofit animal rescue organization, or, you know, a no-kill shelter, basically. So it didn't interfere with the testing because we knew that that would be an issue and that would be a no-win. And that's it, basically. There are different variations in other states, right? But it started in Minnesota and then California, and then it went on from there. And we've passed so far in 11 states, but let me tell you how hard it was. And we thought, okay, there's no way the opposition, the animal testing world, is going to oppose this because it's going to make them look horrible. How can they oppose this when we're not even interfering with the testing? Like, they're going to look like monsters. But it did. They did. They opposed it like crazy. We lost so many times before we passed in almost all of the states. You know, we've passed in 11 states. We tried to pass this federally. That's still pending. So that's our first step. But, you know, we want to go farther, obviously. Last year, we had an amazing, amazing bill pass that was a real struggle, but huge victory. It's called Lennon's Law. We named it after a greyhound named Lennon. And so this was awesome. Most people don't know, and I did not know this. California is the only state that has this insane requirement that blood used for dogs and cats, like let's say, God forbid, your dog needs a blood transfusion. That blood needs to be from a dog who is in a closed colony, meaning that dog needs to be caged in a laboratory, basically a blood slave. And so you're getting that blood for your dog from a greyhound, who has been enslaved. Every single other state in the United States uses a voluntary system, meaning a system just like we use with people, where you go in and you volunteer your blood, and there's all this blood all over the place that's available. People bring their dogs in and they bring their cats in, and there's blood in every region, and it's available of all different types of blood. So here there's one company that has a monopoly on this called Hemopet in Garden Grove, California. And it's run by somebody named Jean Dodds, who pretends to be a veterinarian, but who isn't. She's a veterinarian in Canada, but she's not even a veterinarian in the United States. There's all kinds of stuff. I could go on and on. But anyways, so we found out about this place. And It's disgusting. So they take greyhounds because greyhounds have a universal blood type. It's blood type O. So they can use it for blood transfusions. That's why they like greyhounds for this. Unfortunately, and it's so sad, these greyhounds have already been tortured because they take them from the racetracks. So they've already been slaves on the racetrack. Then they get sold to Hemopet, and then they're slaves at Hemopet. So they're sick, they're in cages, they're being bled constantly, way more than they should be. So they're anemic, and then they've been given all these things to pump up their blood. And so I was mortified when I found this out, and I'm like, we're going to close this place down and change the system. We have to change the law in California. Why does California have this law? Why does no other state have this law? So we couldn't find out why and when California, how they passed this law. This is very political. Nobody in the Capitol could find out either. Not even the attorneys at the Capitol could find out how it got passed. Very, very sketchy. Long story short, took 3 years, but we passed this law last year.
Wow.
And it's amazing, but more work is to be done because it's a phase out, because of course the vet board is very concerned that there might not be enough blood. So we have to prove, excuse me, we have to prove in the next year and a half that the volunteer system is now in place, that the volunteer system will produce as much, if not more, blood as Hemopet can produce. Once we prove that in the next year and a half, Hemopet must shut down completely, and there will never be a closed colony system again. Dogs won't be slaves, and all the dogs in Hemopet will be released. So.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you.
Very excited about that. Yeah.
One of the things that you said at the very beginning is that you know that this is what you're supposed to do. There's so many people that are here that are going to watch this, that are here now, and that will watch this later on, don't know what they're supposed to do, and yet they feel like they're too sensitive to walk into this world. And yet you must have started with an ultimate sensitivity to want to do this work. What do you think it is that makes you, how could we help people see that, like, I always say that our mission is bigger than our feelings, meaning, of course, we're all overly sensitive, but getting into your mission, it drives you. What would you say to that?
To people who are too sensitive, you mean, or?
I'm sure you encounter them.
Yeah. You mean to help them, like?
Yeah, see that they could step into something.
Yeah. I would say that they're starting from a great place, that starting with that open heart that they know that they care about this issue is a great place to start. Because I do hear from a lot of people who think like, oh, I could never do that. It's too difficult. I can't see those things. So if you're starting there, that means that you care. And so many people don't care. You know, they're caught up in just stupid stuff. So if you care, that means that there's something in you that has given you that heart and that soul to do something. And there's a reason you have that heart in your soul. And you just need that little bit of strength, and you've got it in you to find that. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that you have to go, you know, gangster, you know, 100%. You don't have to do that. But there are options of things you can do. You know, you don't have to watch the horrific footage, but you can always do something. And there are just so many different things you can do. Like when people ask, you know, how can I help Beagle Freedom Project? Well, we need help with people helping us write e-blasts, or help with the database, or things like, you know, there are just always different things that you can do. And, you know, people who want to help, they can start shopping cruelty free.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. I mean, you're saving lives right there.
Right.
So it's not like a all or nothing type of a thing. And I think that's what people think, you know, right. But little steps. And I think also the little steps are what help build strength. So it's like you start shopping cruelty free, and then you're like, okay, well, this was easy. I could do this. You know, and then you learn a little bit more, and it's like, okay, well, maybe I'll cut out red meat from my diet, you know, and then dairy. And then you learn more and you learn more and you talk to people about it, and you're building strength as well. And the courage to start talking about these things publicly and to your family and your friends. And I think you get to a place where you're able to have that within you and that resolve.
Well, that's really well said, because I think I think that a lot of people that are overly sensitive, you know, the impulse is to just hide under the covers, and yet it is little thing by little thing by little thing by little thing, and it's muscles toward becoming a full-on activist.
Yeah.
Educating your friends. I mean, I think even just telling one other person that most companies still test, you know, that many companies still test on dogs and cats is starting to spread the word. I feel like stories help also. So it's like, as people build that muscle and they share that with their friends,
Yeah.
it becomes really powerful. And do you do anything to do you have any good habits around compassion fatigue, or do you just wake up and fight the next morning?
Alcohol? I don't know. Lots of wine.
Over there and there.
Yes, that's a good question. No, we all get compassion fatigue, and definitely laughter, laughing with friends, taking that much needed break to just, sometimes you got to laugh at yourself, you know, make fun of yourself, laugh at yourself. Spending time outdoors, that's my thing, is being outside, just taking a day off, because Lord knows, like, with all the stuff we all do, you know, sometimes there isn't a break, right? It's like 24/7, and I'm very guilty of that, because it is life, right? Yeah, exactly. When it's your passion, it's your life, and I'm just saying, okay, today's my day. I'm shutting all the electronics off, and I'm taking the dogs, and we're going hiking, and we're spending the day outside, and then I'm just watching dumb stuff on Netflix, and that's it. And laughing with my friends and having a nice dinner and having some wine. It's as simple as that for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I can't thank you enough for all that you do and all that you shared here today. Claudia, have there been questions, comments that you might want to share?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back and answer a lot of the questions, but people are downloading the app already. People have commented on the app. But one of the questions, which just kind of ties in with what Shannon, you shared about, you know, talking to your family, talking to your friends and stuff like that. In a situation, this is Deborah Thunderchild. She comments, my uncle was a vivisectionist. I believe he tested on chimpanzees. My brother is a doctor. He tested on mice or rats many years ago. My brother is so judgmental of my lifestyle as a vegan. Years ago, I spoke to my uncle about what he's doing. He couldn't hear me either. What do you say to family members who participate in these atrocities?
Well, oh, Deborah, I'm so sorry. Oof. That's a hard one. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. So, I mean, my first instinct is to say, gosh, you could get so much great information, you know, that could help in our world, right? So, you know, speaking with him could really help us kind of understand what they do and why. You know, having the voice of a vivisector. Of course, I would love to speak to him, right? Like, what do you do? You know, why do you think that that's so important? But, you know, to your question, how do you get him to hear you? I mean, unfortunately, he might not. And maybe that's something that you just need to accept. But, you know, I would say, have you tried to talk to him, you know, face to face, and maybe him, I don't know if it's a face to face or a phone conversation, but, you know, obviously sometimes speaking face to face is better, so he can see the pain that you're feeling and what this causes you. And seeing his face and his anger, because he might be feeling so defensive that he's angry. A lot of times people feel that way because they're feeling attacked because of what they're doing, and that they know what they're doing is wrong. And kind of understanding why he did this and where he's coming from, and having a real conversation about that. I think that that's a place to start, but I would love to talk to you like offline. So please feel free to email me, and maybe we can talk about that, or DM me.
Email in the chat, Shannon.
What's up?
Can I put the info email in the chat for people if they have questions for you?
Yeah, you can email me at info@bfp.org, and then it'll be forwarded to my personal email.
Deborah, that's awesome to have this.
Yeah.
That makes me have a little piece about what you're going through, that you get to connect with her directly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any other questions, comments, observations?
Just like I said, people are just commenting. One of our students in the program has used Hemopet, not homeopet, sorry, Hemopet, and he's now like, you know, asking for information, which was given to her by Melissa McWilliams. So it's just, she didn't know, right? People who don't, and she's now upset that she's been going to a company for her dog that is not. So we have a lot of people. Everybody's Shannon.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thank you for this platform. Thank you, because wow, I'm so glad we could educate. And for the person who goes to Hemopet, please email as well. I'd love to give you more information about Hemopet and Jean Dodds for sure. It's critical that you know more. Definitely, you definitely don't want to go there. And these are facts. I mean, I'll provide you with evidence. It's scary.
So cool. You know, I feel like, I always say that, if we could just empty out all the shelters and make everybody adoptable through all the healing methods and things that we do, that then we can go on to other countries. But there's so much to do in this country that we can then model for the rest of the world.
Yes.
But I think you've got I think you've got a little army here. So I personally would love to help. I know that with the school, we have classes where if animals that have been adopted from these facilities seem unadoptable or too traumatized, we've got a lot of techniques and ways in which we can offer services for you and the animals. So I hope that,
wow.
Yeah, we could really do some amazing stuff together. And I think the more that we're giving voice, literally giving voice to them, it has to stop, because this next generation of people isn't going to grow up saying, I don't believe in animal communication. Their mothers are doing, you know what I mean? Like we're entering a brand new world in a, as scary as it is, also in a great way, because of the kids that are, coming of age. And so anyway, if there's any way we can help, we would love to, because I think what you're doing is awesome. Most of my family are all lawyers, so it's I love that you're using that platform for
Thank you so much. No, thank you. That would be so amazing, because, obviously, all of the dogs are quite traumatized when they come out of the laboratory, and many, have a lot of trouble adjusting, and they all, of course, have PTSD, and we would definitely be honored to be a part of this with some of our dogs, and they would definitely benefit from that, as would their foster homes and adoptive homes. And so I'd love to talk to you more about that. That would be
Yeah,
amazing.
I would love that. So
Yeah.
I am totally available, and I know that, like I said, I think you now have a small army. So
Okay.
yeah, thank you so.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. All right.